Thank you for this day. Woo.
Yes.
First time I ever heard that song was with a bunch of Indians out west. And they had rattles and drums and all that, and it was really, really powerful. And so I thought it was an Indian song. and here it is, right here today. Well, I want to say thank you guys for inviting me. And just moved into a new house 3 weeks ago, so I couldn't find my 3-hole punch. If anybody knows where it is, just let me know. Because I'm telling you, and anyway, so now I'm using this. I usually have a notebook, and I'm all organized and things like that. But anyway, just thought I'd start off with giving you a little background about myself. But first, I just want to say, Hank, thank you so much for the light of the world. Thank you for that. A little story about myself. When I was at Unity Village and finishing up the LUT stuff, all the classes and all the 200, 400, I don't know how many hours of contact time we had in classes, and back then we had to go out there to do it. We didn't have the opportunity to take our classes as much as we do now. And so we had to have a 5-minute thing. And I decided to be vulnerable. And I didn't call it that at the time, but I thought, I wonder if I have the guts to do this, because everybody was getting up and saying, I'm so-and-so, and they would give their name. And I thought, I'm not my name. I cannot do it. I can't say, hi, I'm Carla, like that. And so I just, when it was my turn, I got up and I said, hello, I am the light of the world. And everybody just went nuts, But so I just had to thank you for that, and I love that so much that I learned how to say it in Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. Inana nurei dalmach. Inana nurei dalmach. I am the light of the world. So, and then usually you would have said at the end of that, Nur kun. And Nur kun. If you say it with me. Nur kun. Can you feel that in your chest? That means, and that's truth. Nur kun. So, I just wanted to add on to that because I had to do it. So I want to give you a little background about me whenever I go to a new place to speak. And being here on the Space Coast, right out of college. In college, I majored in math and minored in Eastern philosophy, just kind of like both sides of the brain. But my first job out of college was working in the early space program. And it was in St. Louis, Missouri, not here. And then later, my husband got a job here in Titusville, and so for many years we commuted. We moved to Orlando, and then he commuted back and forth to Titusville. So it's kind of really old home, about doing this. While he was doing that, I was working as an environmental advocate and educator. And I was really into the environmental movement when we came to Florida. So once later, when my kids got older, I decided I wanted to get a master's degree, and I got it in environmental engineering. So from then on, I became, I did a lot of environmental engineering and built projects all around the Central Florida area. So going from outer space to, stormwater management, it was just kind of a thing. So, but when I was studying Eastern philosophy, I had to read the Bhagavad Gita. And that had such an impact on my life that and you know how when you read something when you're younger, you take it in, and then when you live it with your life, you forget what the source was. So, like 40 years later, I was out at ceremonial Indian stuff, and that's where I first heard that song, Thank You for This Day, Lord. Okay, so I got this all kind of wrapped up. Okay. But I hope that you'll enjoy this brief window, in looking into the Bhagavad Gita. And I understand that 14 people have signed up for the class that's going to start tomorrow night. I don't know, I think it's at 6, or does anybody know when it starts? I need to know that, but I'm sure it'll come together, and you know because you're signed up, whoever is signed up. So the other thing that I have to disclose is that Reverend Roxanne sent me the order of service. I asked her for it this week, and I finally got it. And last night, about 11 o'clock, I was looking at it, and do you know this woman has said 11:01 we do this, and 11:03 we do this. So I'm going, oh, I'm so impressed. She's so organized and just really fantastic. I thought, gee, I wish I could do that myself. And then I kind of went down the line and I looked at how much time I have. I've got about 14 minutes, and I probably already used it up. So anyway, that's that. So could I have the slides up? Oh, good. Could you go to the next one? Thank you. So I'll just give you a little background in Hinduism. And basically, the Bhagavad Gita is not Hindu. It was there before Hinduism became a religion. It was not a religion. And it's about 5,000 years old. It's probably older than that, but I don't want to embellish, but it's probably older than that. And it's, the Buddha had the Eightfold Path, I believe, or the Fourfold Path, and Jesus had an Eightfold Path that was like all the Beatitudes and all. And here Krishna has really a threefold path. It's selfless action, self-knowledge, and love and devotion. And basically, he says, take your pick, but follow the directions. You've got to, if you take one of these paths, but after reading it, and like every summer I teach this somehow, I think it's a cycle of life or whatever, because it seems like now I'm teaching it once a year. When you read it again, you learn a little more, and your devotion changes and all that. So I think I'm a little bit of all three, but that's what he says. Pick what you want, and could I go into the next slide, please? So I'm not able to see this with you, but the story of the Bhagavad Gita. Can I step down here so I can look at it? Okay. The story of the Bhagavad Gita, and as you can see, is really about this guy named Arjuna, who is told to fight in this battle. It's like a civil war. He has to fight against all of his friends and all of his relations and his relatives and all that. And Krishna, the god Krishna, can you pick him out? Because in Hinduism, all the gods are blue, and so you can see he is the chariot driver, and Arjuna is behind him there with his arm like this. Why do you suppose? He's reaching in for an arrow, because he's going to be the one that is supposed to fight. Well, Arjuna says, I'm not doing this. And he just lays down his bows and arrows, and he says, forget it. I'm not doing this. But go to the next slide, please. And basically, how many of you are in that early class with metaphysical Bible study? Anybody? Okay. So you all know that we don't take we don't take scripture literally, right? And they didn't either. This is explained in these 5,000-year-old documents written in Sanskrit that have been translated down through the years and everything, that the chariot is the body, is our body. The passenger is the soul. So our body, just like in space, you have to wear a spacesuit. You know, they wore a spacesuit when they went to the moon, and when they're up there, when they went out of the Gemini capsule, or the what was after Gemini, I forget. I left that business at Apollo. Yeah. So I used to play bridge with the wives of the Apollo astronauts when I was working there. Just popped into my head. No, it's true. But anyway, so I'm going way off script. But so Krishna is like the super soul, or what would we call it? We would call it the Christ. You know, in the West, the Hindus believe that Jesus was an avatar of God, just like Krishna is an avatar of God. Buddha, all of the saints and sages, and they believe that when the world gets to be such a mess, that one of these avatars comes back. So we're ready, aren't we? bring it on, please. Okay, so the reins on those horses are the mind that has to control all these senses. Now, senses aren't bad. We need to be able to taste. We need to be able to feel that stove is hot and not to touch it there again. You know, that kind of stuff. That's good for the senses. But why do we have to rein in the senses? It's because people say, I only want to look at beauty. I only want to look at this. I only want to do this. I only want to taste gourmet food. I only want to touch soft fur like mink, you know, or something like that. I only want to smell flowers. So when we get that, that's when the senses are taking over. So what we have to do is control those horses, all the 5 horses that are that lead us astray, really, when we do that. So what this book is really about is that it's about the internal war that we wage with trying to get a control over what? Our ego. Or no, it's not really like that either. But I'm trying to find the right. But it is to work with the senses, but not to let them pull you along with all of that. So they are like impulses that we have from living in this body. It's the body. The soul is like the astronaut, and the body is like our spacesuit. Okay. So the 3 ways. The next slide, please. The way of selfless action. Act. You have to act. If you just sit there and say, ain't it awful the way things are going, you know. That's not it. We have to act. And Krishna tells him that you can't just sit here and refuse to fight. You've got to make a choice. He also says that you have the right to work, but you don't have the right to the fruits of your work. Well, wait a minute. I work really hard at my job. I deserve that raise because I'm the hardest working person in that office. Something like that. So he goes, no. You do this as a gift to me. You do this as a gift. If Krishna, that, you know, isn't familiar enough to you, then you would do it as a gift to the Christ. But that is what we do. So the part of the way also talks about our true essence, our spirit. Now here's tying it back. reason why I told you at the beginning that I had a shaman for a spiritual teacher for 14 years is that she was also very eclectic. She was Apache, and her uncle and her father were shamans, and she was raised to be that. She was an invoked spirit, and you know, and all that kind of thing. So she was teaching us a ceremony that we would do when someone is making their transition out of their body. And she said, I want you to memorize this. And I did, and I'll say it for you. I'll just say it for you now. Never the spirit was born. The spirit will cease to be. Never. Never was time, it was not. End and beginnings are dreams. Birthless, deathless, and changeless remains the spirit forever. Death has not touched it at all, dead though the house of it seems. So we memorized, you know, I memorized it. And later I'm thumbing through the Bhagavad Gita, and there it is. And it's in a version that was kind of written way back in the 1930s or something like that. And back then they kind of rhymed things so that people could memorize it better. So she was using that in her crossing over ceremony, which I thought was completely 100% Apache. So this is true though, isn't it? The spirit is never born because the spirit cannot die because it was never born. And that is what we're here for, all about, is to know that. And that influenced me so much through my life. Next slide, please. That should say, the self-knowledge. That's another way. Self-knowledge, spiritual experiences. When you have a spiritual experience, it is yours. Nobody can take that away from you. It's sort of like on a mundane level. Can you read a book and know what water feels like? Can I tell you, I'm a good teacher, right? So I'll tell you what water feels like, then will you know? No. Can you go into a restaurant and read the menu and know what the food is going to taste like? Why? You've got to experience it. You have to experience it for yourself. And so that's that experiential realm. And so a lot of licensed Unity teachers try to get you to experience things when we teach a class, because once you have that little aha, once you have that realization, it is yours forever. And then the other thing about this is that he says that those who follow this path see that where there is one, that one is me. Where there are two, they both are me. They see my face everywhere. Okay, this is what Krishna said. And didn't Jesus say that when you do this for these, you do it for me as well? And so they were saying the same stuff. And speaking of that, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Mohandas Gandhi both read from the Bhagavad Gita every day and from the Sermon on the Mount every day. And this actually ran their lives as well. So when and then Krishna says, those who worship me and meditate on me constantly without any other thought, I will provide for all their needs. Once again, didn't Jesus say, take no thought of the past or the future, but focus on the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you? Same thing, different words, but it's the same idea. And it's a divine idea. So I just wanted you to know that it's not like some foreign language that we're going to be doing. And then this other is so beautiful. We will come to understand God as the giver, the offering, and the receiver. The giver, the offering, and the receiver. And if that kind of puzzles you, just go into meditation with that sometime and see where that takes you. And then we have love and devotion, and I'm probably over my time, so I'm gonna get through this pretty quickly. Krishna says, "But they for whom I am the supreme goal, who do all work renouncing self for me and meditate on me with single-hearted devotion." That's what the Buddha would say. Mindful, single-hearted. Okay. "These I will swiftly rescue from the fragment cycle of birth and death, for their consciousness has entered into me." And this is what carried me from the time I was 19 years old. I didn't want to dawdle. I wasn't going to mess around. I was going to have a spiritual path, and I was going to follow it because I didn't want to come back. So, every step of the way, Krishna tells Arjuna that every step of the way that the awakened and enlightened person is like. He gives detailed examples and patiently answers all of Arjuna's questions in this book. This book is like a guidebook or a field guide for our spiritual path. He talks about the energy that's like a diversion. Have you ever seen those action movies where they're holed up someplace and they'll say, "We need a diversion. Okay, you run over here and make this big noise and then I'll go around." You know, those, I love those action movies. and so he does the same thing. He tells Arjuna who the three diversion energies are: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Egoic love, anger, and laziness. And so he says these things get you in trouble all the time. And so those are like, you have to rein that in. You have to be aware. And so he says awareness is the key. I'll give you an idea, a little example of awareness of it. Okay, so Thomas is acting upon me today. So that's the kind of lazy. I feel like not exercising or meditating. Did anybody ever do that? I'm probably the only one here. I think I'll just stay in bed and I'll call in sick. Okay. That's Thomas. That's that energy. So what he's saying is like, don't indulge it, which is hard to do. Or if I make a pie, let's say, or no, brownies. I'll go, here is sattva. I'm going to make brownies for this guy at work, and I want him to help me on my project. And so I'll be really nice to him so that he'll help me get this project finished on time. Okay, so that's sattva. You got an ulterior motive, right? And then rajas, I am so furious at him. He disrespected my project. He ate my brownies, and he went on about his life, and he did not help me finish it. Now I'm late. Okay, I'll get even with him. I'll start by not speaking to him in the hall, or anytime I'm just going to avoid him, give him the silent treatment. Okay, that's rajas. It's getting even. So this is the gunas at work. Does this ring a bell with anybody? But we have those three diversionary tactics that keep us off of our path. He says, just realize the gunas, Be aware of them, and that will help you not to indulge. I've got a story, a true story about Mohandas Gandhi. He used to kind of like hold court. People would bring problems to him, and he was revered, you know, as a saint and all that in India, and a politician, and he freed India through nonviolence from British control and all. But so people would come, and this one day, this woman brought her 8-year-old child and son, and she went up to Gandhi and hello, what can you? She says, would you please tell him to stop eating sugar? So she was trying to get him to be more in control of the senses, right? Because they're taught this from little kids to control the senses. And so Gandhi says, come back in 6 weeks. Thought about it, yeah, come back in 6 weeks. So the woman left with her kid, and then 6 weeks later, she travels from another city, and she comes before him again. And she says, he said, what can I do for you today? And she says, don't you remember me? I came 6 weeks ago with my son, and I told you to tell him to stop eating sugar, and you told me to come back in 6 weeks. And she said, and so he looks at him and he goes, stop eating sugar. So she says, why didn't you just do it then? I spent money, I came back here, I had to travel, and you know, why didn't you just say it then? He says, because I had to stop eating sugar. So he wouldn't tell somebody to stop doing something that he couldn't do. He was aware that he had a sugar thing. And so that's how he did that. So he did not indulge the senses. And I'm also teaching a meditation class this week too. And I know what time that starts, at 1. But in meditation, what Krishna says is that when you don't indulge these little passions and all, it helps you meditate better. So we're going to try that. We're going to try that this week. Look at what you say yes to and what you say no to, and ask yourself, and oh, could we have the next one? Yeah. What are your motives? Ask yourself, how is this going to help my path? How is this going to, you know, somebody asks you to say, how is this going to help me to serve? How is this, you know, why am I doing this? When Reverend Roxanne asked me to speak here today, I said yes right away. Because I don't want to, you know, I didn't say yes because I could stand up here in front of you and make all these wisecracks and act like I know what I'm doing, you know, or maybe, and all of that. I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because for one solid week, before I give a Sunday service, before I give a Sunday lesson, I am immersed in that topic. I live it, I groove in it, you know. And so that's why I say yes. So anytime you want me to come back, tell her. So let's do the next slide. And so this tells the whole story. Let me go down here again. You can see that Krishna's pointing the way, and he's got control of these horses. As you can see, they're not running now. They're not running loose. They're there, and he has pulled, and so he's telling Arjuna, let the bow go. Have you ever shot a bow and arrow before? All right, so you're standing there, and you go like this. You're pulling, if you're right-handed, you're pulling that back, and you're pulling it, and you're pulling it, and you're pulling it. But what you've got to do, how do you make the arrow go? You've got to let go, don't you? I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. Okay? I told them that I was gonna double back to this song. They said, "You don't mean we have to sing it again?" No. But think of the effort it takes to hold that bow back. And that's what we're doing. We are holding on to all of our false beliefs, all of our ideas, afraid to let those cherished beliefs go, those cherished relatives, those cherished friends. Well, I have done this for years because I'm from Ohio, and Ohio people do this. What? You know, or whatever, fill in the blank. And so you hang on and you hang on. You've got to let it go. And you've got to let that arrow soar. That is your soul. That is what your soul has come here for, is to be released. And so you let it go. And then you rest. You're not holding on to so much stuff. Okay, so the next slide is, now it's time to celebrate. And so we blow the conch shells. Those are not, they're not drinking anything. This is a good crowd, I'll tell you. So, and we celebrate, and we blow the conch shells and make a joyful noise in the cosmos, for another person has fought the eternal battle and found its way home. And they have released their soul. So when I release and I let go, that the only way that that soul can travel is to be released. It cannot travel like this and holding back. So don't hold back.